Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. My guest today is Rose Rivezzi. Rose is the co-chair of the Potsdam Climate Smart Committee. She's here to give us an update on what the committee is doing and where Potsdam is in the climate smart process. Rose, welcome to North Country Matters. How did your
Thank you.
involvement in climate smart communities get started?
Well, I in 2012, I was elected to the Potsdam Town Board, and I served on the board for 8 years. And as part of being on the board, around the year 2018, I tackled developing a comprehensive plan for the town. And while doing that, Alex French and Eric Backus, both from Clarkson, approached me about this DEC initiative called Climate Smart Communities, wondering if it would be a good thing to try to incorporate elements of that into the town's comprehensive plan. So I said, sound like a good idea to me. And they went to the boards, both the town board and the village board, and both those explained the program, and both those boards decided to take the pledge, which just means we're going to acknowledge climate change and see what we can do to work towards improving the situation. So they both took the pledge in 2018. And so the first step in doing that is forming a committee. And so when I was off the town board, I stayed as part of the Climate Smart Communities Committee. So that's how I became involved and still am involved in it.
It's quite a complex process. There's a lot of moving parts to the climate smart community process. So why
Mhm.
don't we briefly review what the climate smart community program is, and you can tell us about the process that your committee went through to get bronze status, which you achieved in 2021 and again in 2024.
Right. So the program is run through New York State and through the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation. And I don't know exactly when the state started the program, but I think their online version happened around the same time we took the pledge and started it. And what it is, it's the program presents a set of actions that a community can take that would either help in reducing energy use or mitigating causes of of climate change. And so in this list is set up kind of like to be an incentive, but it's more like they guide you along the way. And it's not the points itself that matters. It's the actions that the community decides to take. So for 120 points, each of these actions have points associated with them. So for 120 points, you can achieve bronze status. And those usually include items like let's set up the committee. And the town and village decided to set up a joint task force. It seemed to make a lot more sense to work together as a town and village since we'd be using some of the same resources, the same people. And sometimes our actions overlap. We're both like it's something that impacts both the town and the village. And um, and then getting information like the greenhouse gas emissions, like the vulnerability study that we did. And um, so we were very fortunate because we have Clarkson University as part of our community, and they're very interested in sustainability and being a good partner with the community. We have a great resource in them where often there are projects like the greenhouse gas emission inventory that students can do as part of their coursework. So it gives them real life experience with a process, but then we also benefit because if we were to hire consultants for all these things, it would have cost the town and the village quite a bit of money. So it's been a gift to have Clarkson be a partner with us on this thing. But those actions don't last forever, so you do have to recertify and renew. So in 2024 we did that, and we both renewed. So to get silver would be 300 points. And those actions are like we kind of did the low hanging fruit stuff, right? And the actions now are the things that are going to take a lot of money, a lot of time and effort on the parts of the town and village to implement a lot of the things that these studies showed would be places for improvement. And so it's possible, but like I said, it's not so much the getting the recognition and the points, it's more that it drives the community to do the things it needs to do. So right now, we're doing a lot, we've done a lot of things, and the village and town are in the process of starting to do these bigger things. They've had some grants available to them to help them do some of those things. So it might be something we can take a look at if we're on our road to silver. But I always say and so it is a process because you have to document what you've done. You have to provide the documentation. You have to upload the information. I think currently in New York State, the last time I checked, there were like 34 silver communities in the whole state and maybe 100 and so bronze communities. So I think we're just pretty proud that we got to there, and that we still have a committee that's active, because there are probably over 1,000 communities that took the pledge, but of those 1,000, not many have made it the journey to the bronze.
So that really is an indication that this is a process that it's not just about your community, but it's your committee, but the community is taking this seriously too. And this is an excellent time to be doing that, because one of the things that we're watching worldwide is climate change is driving extreme weather, and
Right.
extreme weather is driving hideous costs to
Hmm.
communities, not only in terms of infrastructure damage, but in human terms, in terms of people's lives as well, right?
Right, right. And what our committee does, I mean, we don't have a budget. We don't have any kind of political clout in the town and village boards, but we kind of support the boards and work with them to how can we support them with these actions? Like even the grant possibilities that might be there because we are a Brown certified committee, or there's a tabling effort that needs to happen as part. Like for example, the village applied for a urban reforestry grant to be able to plant some trees, but they needed somebody to make a brochure. They needed somebody to get some information out to the community. So when we can, we try to support the efforts of the town and the village, or bring to the attention of the town and village some things that maybe, are you ready to do this? Can we help you get started on this initiative?
Yeah, that's great. So one of the important parts of the plan has involved water infrastructure. And
Right.
as you know, the basic village water and sewer system is over 100 years old. And in some places, it was created when the village was much smaller, both in terms of footprint and in terms of population. And so one of the problems that we've had in the last few years is getting rid of stormwater. And particularly as we've seen some major flooding events, and we've had the tail end of hurricanes that have come through that have just dumped massive amounts of water into the village. So what's happening currently with the storm water management system? Because that's been one of the key pieces that your committee looked at when you were doing your assessment.
The vulnerability assessment, yes. So right, there was that major storm event, I think, that triggered a lot of action on the part of people who were directly affected by this especially along Waverly Street, Pleasant Street, that whole area of the village. And also Pine Street. So it's triggered some work that can be done there as well to deal with the stormwater issue. So a couple things that have happened. The and this is a good example where the committee can work with the village to support their work in this. So the village just received, not that long ago, a New York State Green Resiliency Grant of $8.9 million. And part of that grant will be to look at establishing retention ponds upstream of all the water flow into the village. So it impacts the town as well, or possibly could, in terms of where these retention ponds are. And so the village that's just starting. All these grants and things take forever, like to sign the final agreements, to figure out who's doing what, to get the work started. But that's an important thing that's happening with the stormwater. The village started a stormwater committee to make sure that this topic is addressed. So it's the place where the village really responded to I think, to the citizens of the village to say, yep, we need to get a handle on this. And it's very expensive. I mean, to replace that underwater canal that takes a lot of the stormwater is just an exorbitant amount of money. But there are little things that can be done, like these retention ponds. So they're looking at that. There are also some Clarkson students who are looking at sanitary infiltration of the stormwater system, which puts a heavier load on the stormwater system. So that's, again, another example of a partnership with Clarkson that we can benefit from. And then looking at Pine Street, the culvert there is too small. A lot of the drainage goes underneath the parking lot. So as the village is looking into renovations of Pine Street, it's like keeping at the forefront of your mind, if we're doing this project, what can we do that aligns with climate smart actions that can also happen at the same time? So as they're looking at work at Pine Street, they can look at, can we increase the size of the culvert? Can we change the way the drainage goes into the river? So those sorts of things are all positives that can happen, and that's what the village is working on now.
And when you just mentioning that, how important that is, if you hadn't done that assessment, then perhaps somebody taking a look at the Pine Street area, if they didn't know about the water drainage problem, they couldn't be thinking ahead like what we're talking about doing now, which is really important because particularly as we see the storms becoming more frequent, they are occupying larger places, larger physical footprints, a lot more water's coming down. It's definitely something we have to be thinking about for the future. So recently, Village News has indicated that the costs and charges for trash removal and recycling may be going up. And reducing what goes into the waste stream is one of the ways to reduce those costs. But not everybody's in a position to compost their own food waste, for example. Is there a way that the village can help to start a community food composting system that is workable?
So that's one of the things that is happening right now as well. It started with a couple grants that Sue Powers and Jan DeWaters through Clarkson, I believe, got through the USDA, which started just look at composting. There's a New York State law that any producer of more than, I believe it's 2 tons now, but it's going to be changing to 1 ton of food waste, I believe in a week, needs to bring it to a composting facility if there is one within 25 miles. And so we do have one now because as part of our looking into ways that we can compost, Cherie Witten has started a composting facility not too far away. And what's been great is the hospital has also become part of the Climate Smart. They have a representative on the Climate Smart Communities thing. So now that they're part of Rochester Regional, they have a big sustainability effort and program there. In fact, they compost everything on all their campuses right now in the village and in the outlying communities as well. So that's wonderful. But in terms of individual households, that's a harder thing to establish. So you're right. The village is looking at renegotiating their contract. And what's happened in the past is that sometimes having the system we have now for village residents, it's a disincentive to compost because you're already paying for your trash, no matter how much you put at the curbside. And food waste tends to be denser, more compact than other waste. So by the time you put some in a bag, you're not really saving, even if you save 1 or 2 bags a year or a month. But the village just received a grant that they applied for through the DEC, which is going to set up a pilot program. I think 8 other North Country communities also have this grant. So it'll be great at the end to compare notes from these communities. But what the grant will do is subsidize the cost for curbside pickup for 120 households voluntarily signing up to do it. All the details aren't there yet, but it's a grant that, again, the ink is wet. They're still working out the final agreement with this. And it'll check to see if people are interested, what are the glitches with it? Can it be incorporated across the whole village? And will this model of curbside pickup work versus maybe like Colton? I just found out yesterday, they also received this grant and their model is different. They also will be, people will collect their compost at home, but they bring it to a composting tumbler. And is that the more efficient way? Would people be willing to do that, or do they want the convenience of curbside? So it's something that will be a pilot, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, certainly removing food waste from the landfill is important, not just because of cost of trash removal, but also because of the methane gases that are produced when foods are in a landfill.
Yeah, you make a good point about that. And until we get some workable systems in place, it is going to be a work in progress in terms of figuring out how a community can actually do this efficiently and cheaply. So
Hmm.
that's good to know that there are some options out there. So there's a lot of work being done about safe streets and a comprehensive safety action plan in the village. Can you
Hmm.
tell us more about that, please?
Actually, this one is both the village and the town. Seems like a lot of these actions tend to be a little village heavy, but the village has so much more, um, I don't know, infrastructure and moving parts to it. So it's kind of easier to get specific grants to help those initiatives. But this grant, which is through the U.S. Department of Transportation, it's called the Street Safe Streets for All grant, spearheaded by, I have to give credit to Eric Backus at Clarkson and his students. But it will work with the town and the village to look at the ways in and out of the village, obviously going involving the town streets as well, and ways to make those things safer. So this plan, when it's developed, again, this agreement's just being signed, the final details are just being worked out on it. But the there will be an appendix to the action plan, one for the town and one for the village, about actions that could be taken. The cool thing about this is that this particular beginning part of the grant, so I don't know if the grant will fund the actions, but at least the planning for actions that could happen, but is to set up 4 demonstrations of things that can be done to make the streets safer for cars, for pedestrians, for bikers, and as well as a traffic garden demonstration in conjunction with the schools, which will provide opportunities to teach kids safety about being in the streets or on roads or sidewalks. Um, and the other thing that this will be nice for, whatever they design with this, it could feed into both the village and the town right now are looking at renewing or revisiting their comprehensive plans.
Mhm.
And so whatever information comes from this will definitely directly impact that work on the comprehensive plans. The village got a grant to help to have a consultant help them do a plan that hopefully will have a lot of climate smart initiatives in it. The town, I think, will just since there is a plan, we'll just have to revise and update the plan. And they're getting ready to hold a series of infrastructure meetings actually for the town to get input from the community of what the community might want to see in the town's infrastructure, which obviously impacts the village residents too, because we all use the same roads in the same spaces. So yeah, so there's a lot going on with Complete Streets as well.
Well, and that is living in a walkable community is an important quality of life issue for
Yes,
sure. And so
yes.
seeing that some attention is being paid to this is good. Now, Cornell Cooperative Extension recently secured a grant through St. Lawrence Eastern Lake Ontario Partnership for Regional Invasive
Mouthful.
Species Management, and that is a mouthful, that will fund several pollinator gardens around the county. And one of those will be right here in the village of Potsdam at the end of Ives Park near the Adventure Playground. Can you tell us more about the pollinator project that the
Mhm.
task force is working on?
Right. So this is a good example of how somebody's passion or interest can just kind of take a tangent. And, in some ways, is it directly related to climate change? I don't know. But I mean, I think in some ways, right, you want to have an ecosystem that's healthy. And so this started when Alex Jacobs Wilk, the mayor, um, had an opportunity for a couple interns through SUNY. And she thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could become a Bee City USA? And so Louise Jensen and I, Louise is on the committee with me, said, okay, well, we can help you with this because this was a lot for Alex to take on to manage some interns. And we quickly found out that it's really not, it wasn't the job of interns. There's just too much involved in this whole world of pollinators and native plants. And if you're not a gardener to begin with, and you look at the public spaces, it could be daunting. And so Louise and I, and we paired up with Mickey Crary, also, she's a master gardener at CCE, looked at the public spaces in Potsdam, Garner Park. We looked at Ives Park, we looked at Fall Island, we looked at Cubley Park, the little pocket park there by Leroy Street and Lawrence Avenue. And we thought, well, are there places that we can think about native plants to attract native pollinators? And first of all, like, can we do this with volunteers? Because there is, the village doesn't have the crew and the staff and time availability to, we don't have a person in the summer who's just an arborist or can manage gardens. So it would have to be done with volunteers. So we had a meeting to see what interest there was. And what was great about this meeting is that not only was there interest to have the public spaces convert more towards native plantings, but also there's a lot of interest for people to bring this to their own backyards, which is really as important, if not more important, because there's a lot more backyard space than there is public park space. So if people in their own backyards can start planting more natives and thinking in that direction when they're choosing what new plants to put in, it would be a great thing. So that's what's happened. We have like an email list now, I don't know, of 80 people who are interested in learning more about native plants, learning more about pollinators. But in the meantime, Isaac, who's part of the Jefferson County CCE, came to us with this grant from Salo Prism. And we walked around, like, where could it be if we wanted to do a demonstration plot? It'd be like about a 30 by 30 demonstration plot. And so it seemed like the end of Ives Park is a pretty public spot, but not in the middle of the main activity of Ives Park. And there are already some native plantings down there by the play area. And so it seemed to make sense. We were going to start it last fall, but then winter came early and stayed last year. So the plan is now to get it started where they have to remove some sod, and then Isaac will come in and he has the money to do the demonstration plants. And then again, you know, we'll have to rely on some volunteers to help keep it weeded, to keep it going once it's established. But it's just to raise awareness of how important it is when you're thinking about what's happening to our ecosystems, to curb the invasives that are a problem and to go towards plants that will attract the native pollinators.
It's, you know, we're talking about really community driven.
Yes.
And that is what is so exciting about so much of this, is that it's the fact that people are thinking about, well, this is where I live and I want to make it better. And this, you know, how can I help to do that? And that's part of what, you know, anybody who wants to do this work on the Climate Smart Committee, it's just a way to make the community better, isn't it?
Right. And that's why sometimes it's not driven by those points. It's not driven by, are you
Yeah.
silver, are you bronze? It's driven by, there's a lot that can be done in a community. There's a lot people can do in their own backyards, in their own homes. And how can we support the town and village in their efforts to move in this direction? Or at least have it on their wavelength as they think about the decisions they have to do. You know, can we do this in a more sustainable way? Can we do this in a more environmentally friendly way? And so it's exciting to see those kinds of things happening.
Not only that, but the fact that you're getting such tremendous buy-in from the community on this particular project, you know, that's just very exciting. So as the federal government backs away more and more from mention of climate change, local communities have to step up to face these challenges and to prepare for the changes that we all see coming down the road when it comes to the environment and climate. So how can people who are interested in helping with the work of the task force get more information and get involved? What's your meeting schedule, and is it open? Can anyone attend, Rose?
Yes, anybody can attend. I mean, we have an established committee of, you know, our regulars, and the town website has a link under community, I believe. The tab is community, and the Climate Smart has a page there, and it's a landing page for a little background of what we've done, and lots of links to those studies, to a list of actions that we've completed. So they can find that there. My email is on that site, and people can reach out to me or Chip Morris, who's the co-chair of this committee, and just say they'd like to join us. There's sometimes people just come and check it out, and then either they have the time or they don't have the time. Um, so yeah, we're looking for people. You don't have to have, I mean, having expertise is wonderful. Like having such a um, knowledgeable committee is great with the Clarkson people there and
Mhm.
other people who joined us who bring a strong skill set. But you don't need to. Sometimes we just need people who are willing to man a table at the farmers market to get information out to people, or just want to do something, and they kind of come to a few meetings and they say, oh, I can do that. So yeah, anybody can come, anybody can join, and that would be great.
Well, thank you so much, Rose, for taking the time to talk about all of this with us, for the work you've already done, and how open your committee is, and how much you are looking forward to the community participating, because this is a great way to get involved in the community. And as you say, you don't need a ton of expert knowledge. You just need
Mm-mm.
a desire to be part of it, isn't it?
Right, right.
Well, thank you. We'll be sure to put those links that you talked about in our show notes. And hopefully, if this winter ever ends, and we can actually get some gardening done this
Right.
spring, I don't
We
know.
will. We will.
It's been kind of a long winter, but hopefully, people will be ready to get out and get their hands dirty and dive into these projects with you.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
Donna.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.